Last week, Carolyn talked about building a sense of community on our work teams. Now, there are many different pieces to that. She specifically went into details about how to effectively share as a strategy for creating a sense of community. And we'll go into some other sense of community strategies later in the year. A month or two ago, we covered shared vision, and those are 2 out of the 3 social climate ingredients. Today, we're going to start talking about positivity. There are many elements in the positivity bucket. We're going to focus on words matter. So if you've ever done public speaking, you realize that sometimes when, you're trying to figure out the next word, you say and such. We know we're doing it, but until you have watched the recording, you may not realize how many times you say well, and It's actually quite disturbing when you're earlier in your practice of public speaking, because you realize how bad it sounds. And we all need some way, some reminder or some way to get coached or trained so that we can be more mindful of what words we're choosing. We don't always realize what we're saying. And it's not just the words. Sometimes it's our general ideas and how they come across. Sometimes the way the words we choose come across and create a picture that's positive, and sometimes the way we talk creates a negative aura. We all rather be around someone who's speaking and painting the picture with the cup half full. It just makes us feel better. And again, just like listening to your recording, how do you know whether or not you're regularly or most often talking and creating a cup half full perspective, or you inadvertently are creating a cup half empty aura? So one way is to ask a trusted friend or a family member to be honest with you. We're going to play a game. This is the first game on our 10-minute well-being tips for managers, and it could be the last one. We'll see. We're actually not going to play it because we only have 10 minutes, but I thought it'd be fun to pretend. I'm going to kind of walk you through this. You can play in your head. I'm going to give you a word, and I'd like you to be thinking, okay, instead of the word cut, which kind of sounds harsh, is there a word that we could use that might be a little bit more positive or a little bit less negative, depending on how you want to look at it? So I've got to cut the budget. Well, do you have to cut the budget, or do I need to reduce it or trim it? And again, slight nuance, it means the same way, but how the person receives it could be different. Do you have to give constructive criticism, or could you give feedback? Now, I'm going to just pause a little bit on this one, never give up. When I first saw this one, it reminded me of either like a football team who's down, or maybe going into battle. Either way, it sounds like you're up against the wall. It doesn't sound hopeful. Whereas we could say, keep up the good work. And that's really going with the momentum. So some things are going right, and keep doing that. Control, instead of control, maybe substitute that for the word guide or manage. And then instead of dependent, we're dependent on this other department. Well, are you dependent? Are you connected? Are you collaborating? And finally, my last example is maybe we're not looking to someone to blame, but we're looking for someone to be responsible and maybe someone to take ownership to make something better. It's not just words that we may want to play a game with. Sometimes we want to look at the whole interaction that we have with another person. So every time that we have a moment with someone on our team, we're creating either a positive feeling or a negative feeling, or maybe a neutral feeling. And your feeling might be different than the person who's receiving your words. So I'm going to give you an example. When someone's late for work, and I'm not saying to do this, and I honestly don't mean to, I don't want to come across as lecturing. We all have room for improvement. If you're having a bad day and you're stressed and someone comes into work late and you kind of say something that you think might be funny, like, did you forget to turn your alarm on? You know, the person who's coming in late may think it's funny because you have a good relationship with them and they know, but maybe they actually are already stressed and that makes them feel even worse. As opposed to saying, hey, you're usually on time and is everything okay? So one creates a negative interaction and the other creates a positive interaction. The reason why I bring this to you today is that we know that interactions or between two people, when the ratio is 3 positive interactions or more to 1 negative interaction, those teams that have that overwhelming positive interactions are more likely to function well together. And not only that, when you do have a bad day, when you do say something that you later regret, probably shouldn't have said it that way, your team is more likely to forgive you. They are more likely to, you have built trust and they're probably gonna be more easy to let it go. This is amusing. I'm gonna say something about feedback, but as I was making the slide, I just was typing and I wrote the word difficult and I was like, hold on a second, that's kind of a little bit negative. Maybe I could choose a more positive word. So this happens and it's helpful to be conscious of this so that you can be more intentionally positive. Feedback's difficult. We're not going to go into it today. On my last slide, we have a resource about how to be effective with feedback and still stay positive. It's from our organizational development and learning team, and stay tuned for a slide in a little bit. So not only do the words impact the person that's receiving the words, but our interactions with one person on the team have a ripple effect. And so you have a positive interaction with someone on your team, and they're more likely to have positive interactions with other people on the team. And the same holds true if it's a negative interaction. So the words that you share with someone are negative, and then that might put them in a down mood, and that may impact how they interact and the words they use with other people on the team. And so it's just, we're all connected and our behavior has a ripple effect. So what can we do? What can we take away from this? So every week we give agenda tips that you could put on the team agenda. You might ask people to tell you when you are using a word or a sentence that is cast in a negative light. You might say, hey, I'm happy for feedback. Maybe you could give it to me privately later on in the day. I'm trying to create a new habit of speaking more positively, and I'd really appreciate you catching me on this. And if you're comfortable telling me during the team meeting, great. If not, maybe later in the day. So it's not just about how you speak with the people on your team. Think about how you speak to yourself. We often don't speak kindly to ourselves. We often are kind of harsh critics of our own behavior. We tend to choose words to ourselves that we probably wouldn't use. We wouldn't talk to our friends a certain way. So why would we talk to ourselves poorly if we know that that wouldn't be a nice thing to say to our friends? When we talk poorly to ourselves, it tends to bring our own well-being down. So be kind to yourself. We all have bad days. If you have a day where you regret the words that you chose, just know that most of the time we are speaking positively and tomorrow's another day.